pleasant day to all. For the next 15 to 20 minutes, I will be presenting and discussing the overview of Chapter 8 of the updated Philippine Development Plan, or PDP, on expanding economic opportunities in agriculture, forestry, and fisheries, and ensuring food security. As in past formulation of the PDPs, even in their updating, we always start with an assessment of the performance of the sector. And indeed, in the recent past, we witnessed the continued improvement of the delivery of certain support services that increasingly have given priority to small farmers and fisherfolks for them to have greater participation in the value chain and in the establishment of agri-enterprises. Both the Sagip-Saka Act and the Personal Property Security Act created opportunities to modernize the sector and pursue to facilitate faster growth and development in rural areas. In addition, both farmers, rice farmers, and consumers are also starting to reap the benefits of the passage of the rice tariffication law, with the slight gains in yield levels and local rice prices at lower and more stable levels. Sustaining such good performance, however, has been always difficult because of various events that we cannot control. These include climate or weather disturbances, such as the occurrence of El Nino or the back-to-back typhoons, and the occurrence of pest and animal diseases. Weak global demand and increased competition posed by other countries also result in the decrease in value of our key commodity exports like coconut. The emergence of COVID-19 pandemic also affected the sector's performance, especially the implementation of community quarantines that restricted movements of peoples and services, primarily the delivery of produced to where they are needed most. Despite all these disruptions and difficulties, the AFF sector remains upbeat as farmers and fisherfolk continue to intensify agricultural activities as we move to the new normal situation. The following challenges are expected to persist. First is the disruption in the agri-food supply chain, particularly in transport and logistics of inputs, machineries, and equipment, and farm produced with sporadic imposition of lockdowns in areas where spikes of COVID cases will happen. And when such community quarantines are imposed and people are limited to move, operations of wet markets and supermarkets and retail food establishments are strictly regulated, and decline in institutional buyers such as hotels and restaurants, demand for food and other basic commodities will be affected. The new normal nonetheless will usher the agriculture sector to a whole new challenge of responding to greater demand for food, for processed food with longer shelf life and for more nutritious and healthy food. In this regard, innovative technologies for processing and packaging to keep up with the demand for processed food products will have to be quickly developed. These emerging challenges will have to be dealt with on top of the existing issues such as constraints to access to land and water resources, vulnerability to climate change and disaster risks, limited strategic infrastructure, and long-standing institutional problems related to weak extension services, over centralization, lack of coordination, and overlapping functions within and among agencies. Thus, for the remaining period of the plan that aims to achieve a healthy and resilient Philippines, the AFF sector will adopt a holistic value chain approach to sustain a more resilient food production and food availability, to expand access to markets by small farmers and fisherfolks, and to improve access of consumers to nutritious, affordable, and safe food. Pursuit of these strategic thrusts will be guided by science-based decision support tools. Chapter 8 Strategic Framework has now three major strategies to contribute to the Pagbabago pillar. of the updated Philippine Development Plan. These strategies, which are in blue boxes, include expanding opportunities across regions, expanding access to economic opportunities, including the digital economy, and ensuring food security and reducing the vulnerability of Filipinos. The strategic framework, as shown in whole here, includes the sector outcomes and their respective subsector outcomes, but which I will be discussing in detail in the subsequent slides. Also included in the framework are the chapter's cross-cutting strategies. Sector Outcome 1 ensures to have, at the end of the plan period, a sustainable and resilient food production and availability. In order to have this, AFF productivity within ecological limit must improve by optimizing the use of science-based decision support tools and methodologies to enhance resilience and improve productivity. Pursuing an ecosystems approach by employing a science-based participatory and transparent governance framework and mechanism to sustainably manage fisheries, and strengthening the promotion of intercropping and integrated farming systems. Additionally, the development and adoption of modern climate and disaster resilient production technologies have to be intensified. To achieve this, irrigation development has to be accelerated, especially the construction of disaster and climate resilient small irrigation systems. The existing ones have to be retrofitted. Provision of appropriate farm and fishery machineries, equipment, and facilities should be intensified. Research and development activities in AFF have to be also strengthened, especially on technologies to improve productivity, reduce post-harvest losses, and enhance risk resilience. AFF extension system has to be likewise strengthened to enhance the capacity of farmers and fisherfolks to adopt new and better technologies. A third sector outcome relates ensuring greater access of small farmers and fisherfolks to land and water resources. By doing this, we have to fast track and complete the parcelization of collectively titled awarded lands and generate all individual titles to address investor uncertainty and facilitate investments in agrarian reform areas. Strictly enforce and monitor the implementation of existing laws, rules, and regulations on land reclassification and conversion, issuance of guidelines by BIFAR and the delineation of municipal waters for LGUs with offshore islands. The second sector outcome is on expanding access to markets of small farmers and fisherfolks. There are three subsector outcomes here to ensure that farmers and fisherfolks are going to be able to take advantage and to gain as we move into a more digital economy. That they are going to be increasingly be part of the value chain towards the development of agri-based enterprises and to be able to access innovative, affordable, and adequate financing. And the first subsector outcome, which is to access to digitally supported value chains, we need to have to do the following: to provide efficient transport and logistics systems to link production areas to markets and ensure unhampered movement of A&F goods and services. We strengthen online marketing of agriculture and fishery products, including establishment of online or digital channels for transactions and delivery services. And third, to organize small farmers and fisherfolks into formal groups and promote farm consolidation and clustering arrangements. Take note that the above mentioned strategies will also contribute to sector outcome 3, which will be discussed in the succeeding slide. For subsector outcome 2.2, we need to have all the AFF-based enterprise increased. And to do this, we need to strengthen AFF sector linkage to industry sector through innovative production, processing, value adding, and marketing schemes. Examples would be contract growing arrangements, corporate farming, and other forms of linkages. Second one would be to capacitate small farmers and fisherfolks and micro, small, and medium enterprises in diversifying into commodities with high value adding and market potentials. This will include processing, understanding the markets, proper product handling and packaging, and ensuring food safety and quality standards. The third one would be to increase access of the small farmers and fisher folks and other AFF stakeholders to timely and reliable agricultural market information systems. This should include the provision of information on prices, information on buyers, suppliers, or the sellers, and providers of ancillary services like tracking, packaging, and warehousing services through the use of digital platforms and other appropriate media. The third subsector outcome is on access to innovative, affordable, and adequate financings, which have to be also increased. And to do this, we need to provide access to affordable formal credit to start, restore, sustain, and expand AFF based livelihood activities and businesses. We need to continue to implement credit programs with low interest and flexible terms for SFFS and AFF based enterprises. Examples of this low interest and flexible terms would be production loan easy access and the survival and recovery assistance programs of the Department of Agriculture. We need to expand agricultural insurance coverage. The institutional capacity and capitalization of the Philippine Crop Insurance Corporation need to be strengthened and augmented to expand the provision of agricultural insurance services. For sector outcome 3, it relates to improving access of consumers to nutritious, affordable, and safe food to Filipinos. And you will note that strategy sector outcome 2 are also relevant in achieving the sector outcome 3 objectives to ensure Filipinos will always have safe and healthy food and better and more types of processed food. So in terms of achieving the sector's subsector outcome 3.1 on food safety and standards and regulations to be strictly enforced, we need to strictly implement food safety measures, quarantine procedures, and other existing rules and regulations in managing risks and addressing food safety and quality standards. And subsector outcome 3.2, which is on the development and adoption of food preservation technologies, we need to develop processing and packaging technologies to prolong the shelf life and improve the nutritional content of agriculture and fishery products. This can be done by intensifying support for public research institutions, state universities, and colleges in producing safe, nutritious, medicinal, therapeutic, and well-packaged agri-food products that are commercially viable. The following strategies are cross-cutting all sector outcomes. First one is strengthening the coordination and convergence of government agencies in undertaking joint planning and monitoring and budgeting for priority programs and projects to ensure complementation in the implementation of priority plans, programs, and projects. The second one would be to promote agribusiness courses and training programs under collaborative schemes with the academe, the government, the business sector, and integrate the use of modern agricultural technologies in elementary and high school curriculum to engage the youth in agriculture and fisheries. The third one would be to intensify activities on enhancing resilience of the AFF sector to climate and disaster risks. The next slide shows the revised targets and indicators of the sector outcomes to make them more consistent with the chapter's revised strategic framework. Note that the targets in red font were revised from the original target to consider impacts of the pandemic as agreed in the subcommittee of Agriculture, Fisheries, and Forestry. The outcome statement for Chapter Outcome 1 was changed from economic opportunities in agriculture, forestry, and fisheries expanded to sustainable and resilient production and food availability increased. Targets for the gross value added in livestock and poultry in 2021 was reduced from 3.4 to 4.0 to 2.0 to 3.0 due to the restricted movement of commodities, which made it difficult for stakeholders to maintain operation due to the African swine fever, due to avian influenza, and other animal diseases that adversely affected the sectors. Moreover, 2021 and 2022 annual growth rates and the end of plan target for commercial fisheries were also reduced from 2.5 to 1%. This is due to the intensified law enforcement and regulation activities in combating IUUF, translated into lesser fishing efforts by commercial fishing vessels. Pandemic and post scenario is not yet considered in these indicators and targets. For Chapter Outcome 2, the outcome statement was also changed from access to economic opportunities by small farmers and fisherfolks increased to access to markets of small farmers and fisherfolk expanded. In line with the chapter's revised strategic framework, the third outcome on the access of consumers to nutritious, affordable, and safe food was added. The indicators for this outcome were cross-referred from the results matrix of Chapter 11, ensuring food security and reducing vulnerability of Filipinos. My two last slides are on the priority legislative measures to achieve the outcomes aimed for by this AFF sector. The first one on the list is the National Land Use Bill. This bill is to properly and rationally delineate, classify, or reclassify, allocate, establish, utilize, and manage land resources. The second one is on the establishment of the Coconut Farmers and Industry Fund, which is now a law. This is Republic Act 11524. It is a law to consolidate all assets and benefits emanating from the coconut levy and create a Coconut Farmers and Industry Trust Fund to exclusively benefit coconut farmers and farm workers. The third legislative agenda is on strengthening of the Philippine Crop Insurance Corporation. We need to reorganize the PCIZ and increase its authorized capital stock to cater to demands of the SFFS more effectively. The fourth one is on Magna Carta for young farmers, and this is to promote and protect the rights of young farmers, establish programs for them, and institutionalizing the representation in agricultural decision-making and policy-making processes. The fifth one is on strengthening the agricultural and rural financing system in the Philippines. This is to amend the Agri-Agra Reform Act, Credit Act of 2009, or RA 10,000, by expanding the list of eligible projects and activities that can be funded by banks, as well as broaden the existing modes of alternative compliance to allow banks to comply with their agricultural lending obligations. The next one would be to impose a progressive idle land tax that will promote the productive use of the idle lands, even if temporary, but without prejudice to the rights of owners to security of tenure. And the last one is the amendment of the Rice and Corn Law, or the PD 194. This places an unnecessary burden on foreign companies engaged in rice and corn by placing a time limit of 30 years on how long they may operate as 100% foreign-owned entities. After expiration of the allowed period, they're expected to divest in whole or in part at least 60% of their investment to Filipino citizens and local interests. There is a need to amend this law to attract foreign investments in the agriculture sector that will also provide employment opportunities to Filipinos. Expanding economic opportunities in the agriculture forestry and fisheries sector is really pivotal in attaining inequality, reducing transformation, and is crucial in achieving the goal of a healthy and resilient Philippines. With that, I'd like to end my presentation with this call for the whole of society to take action. Tayo na't bumangon, ituloy ang aksyon para sa ambisyon. Thank you.